We are about to get started. All right, welcome everybody. We are officially started and recording this so that people who can't be with us today will have the chance to listen to us at some future time that's convenient for them. I want to welcome everybody and begin with acknowledging some very special people who are here, which is everybody on the call, I'd say, but speakers and founders. So I want to point out Everett O'Keefe and Junko Horvath, who are speakers, and I'll introduce them a little more completely in a minute. But first, I would like to acknowledge Gloria Peterson, who is the visionary, who had the idea to start an authors series featuring authors who are members of the Global Chamber. And we are now in the second part of that series. So Gloria, thank you for behalf of all of us. I'd like to introduce Cesar Trabanco, who is the Vice President of International Business Services for the Chamber, who is hidden, there he is, who masquerades in his spare time as our Zoom master. So we thank you for making sure that we could be here and be recorded. And of course, our CEO and founder of the Global Chamber, Doug Brunke. We thank you, Doug, for founding the Chamber. But most of all, this morning, we thank you for your support for this program and look forward to the day that we are welcoming you as a published author soon to come, right?
Absolutely. And I'm also wondering, you mentioned about Cesar's spare time. I wonder when that is.
I think it's about the minute and a half between one Zoom meeting and another.
And he's amazing, and you're all amazing. We really appreciate you putting this together, and it's inspiring, you know. And I'm really happy that this is going to be a resource that will live on, you know, that people can use this for hopefully getting them over the finish line. So thank you for sharing your knowledge today and every day for future book writers, including us, Cesar and I, in our book. I came up with another book idea, by the way, last week. I was just something happened after that last meeting that we did. And then there was an idea, and it's distinctly different from our first book. And so it was like, I think this is a second book. So thanks for the constant inspiration.
That is really exciting to hear that you now are working, at least in your head, on two books. We're going to end up with a whole library of Doug and Cesar books. And we can celebrate that when.
Yeah, remember, you have to be careful. It's like those potato chip brand, right? You can't eat just one. True with books. True with books. You can't write just one.
I think that's true. And I want to introduce one more person who is a multi-book author, and that's Dwayne Canova, who is my partner on the committee to do this part of the series. He is an author and the CEO of okay, Dwayne, I can't pronounce the name of your company.
You pronounced it perfectly. It's just Zenity.
Zenity Leadership, and he is a multi-book author and active on the committee. So those are some of our special attendees this morning. But now I'm going to, I guess it's me, introduce our speakers, and we'll have a conversation about the books they wrote, why they wrote them, how they're selling them. And then toward the end of the session, we'll open it up for questions if there are, for those of you who are attending. So let's start out introducing Junko. Junko Horvath is the CEO of Fujiyama Wealth Management in Atlanta, Georgia. She is a certified financial planner and also a certified financial transitionist. She's the author of Amazon's popular book, Women in Financial Transition. Now, she defines transitions as a divorce, an inheritance, moving, retiring, winning the lottery. I hope there's a story about that. Her clients are grateful for her help over the last 20 years. She's also an award-winning financial planner. She's the 8-time recipient of the 5-Star Wealth Manager Award given to the top 3% of financial advisors in Atlanta. And She's the winner of the 2021 5-Star Professional Award for Women in Wealth and was featured in a recent issue of Fortune magazine. But one of the things that sticks with me that Junko said is when life changes, money changes. And when money changes, life changes. And she's there to help her clients through those moments. Our other fantastic, or as Doug would say, amazing speaker is Everett O'Keefe, who is a Wall Street Journal best-selling author. He's not only an author himself, but he's helped publish nearly 100 best-selling books. He's the founder of Ignite Press, a hybrid publishing company that specializes in publishing nonfiction books for speakers, business executives, and more. He also leads a phenomenal mastermind group of professionals in the publishing industry. And when he's not at work, you can find him spending time with his wife, 3 grown children, singing at church, or playing frisbee golf. And I'm going to reserve some time with Everett when we get off this call to find out what is frisbee golf, but I won't ask you to talk about that. I want to point out to everybody who's listening that we really are extraordinarily fortunate this morning because we have Junko, who is an accomplished professional who has written a book and how that book relates to her work and her life. And then we have Everett, who comes to us as an author, but also as somebody deeply involved in the publishing world who has worked with dozens and dozens of authors. So we have his personal perspective and what he's seen for those authors that he's worked with. So it gives us a unique perspective in addition to what we'll get from our audience. So now I'm going to ask our 2 speakers, actually give them a chance to speak. What a concept. And I'd like to begin with Everett with a question is, could you tell us about why you wrote the book that you wrote, the first book or the book that you want to talk about this morning? A little bit about why you wrote, what your thinking was, and how did you do it in the most basic way? Did you type it on a computer? Did you dictate it, pencil and paper?
Scratch it out on a tablet, on a scroll.
Hieroglyphics.
That's
Yeah,
it.
whatever you did. Could you share that with us?
Sure. So I'm the author of soon to be 7 books. The 7th is coming out, but this was my 5th book. It's called The Power of the Published. And it is how rapidly authoring a book can ignite your business and your life. And I wrote this for the exact same reason I suspect many people on this call are writing a book or will want to write a book, for authority and for education. I wrote it so that my readers would see me as a person of authority in the space, and so that I could educate them on the topic so that they would be more likely to engage our services. And it's the same reason probably that Junko wrote her book. It's probably the same reason that Doug is going to write at least 2 books, et cetera. And the reason for it is because of this crazy power of books, right? Books are insanely powerful in communicating, in persuading, educating. So that's why I wrote the book. As to how I wrote it, I started by just writing down all the great things that books do. I started with a list, an ever-growing list of ways books can be employed in a business or brand. And I thought, oh, this will be great. And as I started to write it, I went, this is really boring. I went, I need to add some stories to this, right? Because stories, yeah, as you know, are such great communication tools. So I went back and I just started, I started lining up my client stories and my stories with each one of those points, and it grew. I wrote it all on a Google Doc, and just like you could do in Word or any other way. And it grew and grew and grew. Pretty soon I had 42,000 words. And that's kind of in one of our sweet spots for a book length. And I leverage this book every day. every day I leverage this book, often by giving it away. In fact, 10 minutes before this call, I was on a call with a prospect who I'm going to send the book to, who she's going to go, this is for me. I totally get it now. I know why I need to do a book, and this is why I'm going to go forward.
All right. Thank you very much. It really, your description fits so well with the overall topic for this week. It's about selling and the selling platform. And you pointed out that a book is a sales tool in a way.
It's the best sales tool. I mean, we can talk about it later, but I think a book is the closest thing there is to a silver bullet in marketing, because of the wide array of ways it can be used, and the fact that it's so powerful and intimate and durable. Think about what other marketing tool will you create today that you could still be leveraging decades from now? There isn't one, but a book will do it.
Okay, we'll hold that thought. A long-standing, it has a long tail in a way, a long life. All right, so that's why you wrote and how you wrote. And Junko, I want to come to you to answer the same question. Why the book? How'd you write it? You know, that little introduction about what got you started. What drew you to this?
Okay, so in my case, I should explain a little bit about my upbringing. I grew up in Japan in a traditional Japanese home where my father was a corporate executive, my mom was a homemaker, and then my father was not the controlling person, but he never disclosed to my mom how much he was making, how much we had in savings. And my mom was given every month the allowance to buy what's necessary to the household. And then I grew up like that. And sometimes my mom, when she wasn't happy, she said, Junko, I want to leave home. Then I told my mom, how could you leave home? You don't have money. You don't even know how much my father is making, whether he had a savings and whether he would give you some money. How could you leave? And then my mom told me one day, she didn't talk to me about her parents very much, but one day she said, Junko, my mom died when I was a year and a half, and my father died when I was 11. I didn't have the chance to get an education. So study hard, get an education. Don't be like me. Education will open up doors for you, and you won't have to depend on anyone else. So I took her words to heart. And then I decided to come to the US from Japan and get an MBA. And fast forward, after I became financial advisor, I thought that my mom's case was because of her heritage. So I was shocked when I learned many American women who are well educated did not have the confidence in their own finances because many of them let their spouses handle all the financial decisions. And so I said to myself, I had to empower those women. And 2019, I decided to write my book, A Woman in Financial Transition. This is my book because I couldn't take it anymore. Women came to my office crying and say, I just got divorced and I have, $500,000. What should I do? And some women are crying and say, I have a few more years to retirement. I don't know what to do. I don't have money. And so then I thought it's a national issue. It's not just, my mom or this woman, that woman. How could I empower them and stop them making the big mistakes or irreversible mistakes, before it happened? Then I thought about, why don't I interview those women who made mistakes or who made a success? So I decided to go out and interviewed 50 people. And I was lucky. I started in November 2019 and I finished beginning of March 2020 before the COVID hit hard. So I interviewed all those people who experience those divorce or inheritance or those changes, but I didn't want to just, put the real story. So I wanted to be educational. So I interviewed also the professionals such as divorce lawyers and forensic accountant and a child psychologist and Medicare specialist and business brokers and elder law lawyers and all those people. So people can gain knowledge by reading my book. So that's why I wrote my book.
Okay. And how did you write it? Did you?
So my writing is not too good. I'm foreigner. So I thought that's why I chose the interview way. That way, I went to people's offices because my publisher said instead of having like a Zoom meeting, that's pre-COVID, it's better to go meet people and then just interview. So I bought like some cheap, microphone, like $25 at Amazon. I went to see people and I recorded, and then the publisher transcribed and sent that to me and I edited, and that's how I wrote. So that's I think for me was the easiest way to write.
Great, thank you. And a theme I'd say from both of you is that your book are filled with stories, examples of people, whether it was interviews or experiences you've had, but you made the basic information come to life through the words of other people. And that's something for all of us to think about as we're thinking about our books, is that energy that comes from having people tell you things. In the books I've written, that was always part of what I did, is have stories with people, because I think there's a certain authority that comes from having a third party tell you something, rather than the author always being the one in the role of the teacher. You let somebody else tell their stories. And it's
that is so true. And you may have heard the story, the phrase "facts tell, stories sell," and it's very, very true. But you're right also about that additional credibility that comes with it. It's not just me telling you why something is this. I'm showing you because here's an example of people who have gone down that road. And like Junko's done with her book.
And I want to pick up from part of what both of you said. Junko, you just made a casual reference to working with a publisher, that the publisher transcribed the stories for you. So could you talk a little bit about how you chose a publisher? One of the discussion points in almost every one of our series is self-publish, or do you go with a traditional publisher? And I think we could touch a little bit of that, especially with the work you do, Everett, but I want to start with Junko.
Yeah.
Did you go with a traditional publisher?
Mm-hmm. So what I did was that if I just tried to self-publish and start writing, I knew that it's going to slow me down. And I have to put myself in a situation I really have to. So I contacted, somebody recommended something called Scribe Media. So I called them, they're in Texas, and they said there are 3 ways. One is to ghostwrite, and which is like $25,000 to $35,000. That is a number from 2019. Another way is that I'm going to go there to Austin, Texas or something, and I'm going to have a boot camp, like 2 or 3 days, and they're going to tell me all about how to write the books. It's a group session. Then I come back. Then I start writing. So that's another way. And I forgot the other way. But anyway, the next session was like January of 2020. So I didn't want to wait. I started contact in November 2019. And I thought, I don't want to wait for 2 more months and to take the session and come back and start writing. And then my friend's financial advisor, she's in San Francisco, and she wrote the book. So I said, who did you use? And then she gave me her publisher's name. And the phone number was Atlanta number. So I called the person and, he seems to be easygoing. And he said, instead of paying all, he just takes the monthly coaching fee. So I thought, yeah, if somebody works with me monthly, that means every month I have a deadline to meet. And that's what's better for me. And that's how I chose the publisher.
Okay, so it was an independent publisher. They
Yeah.
they helped you, they gave you deadlines for the writing, you did the writing, and then you gave it to them and they published the book. And then do they pay you royalties? Or do you, or
I don't,
do they do?
loyalty, I don't know. I don't know how it goes. I know that, I make little money if somebody buys my book. So that's,
Okay,
and I wasn't expecting money from selling the book because I wrote a book trying to get more speaking engagement. So
okay. So yeah, that's a really important point. The goal of it was to build awareness in the community of the work you do so they would come and hire you, right?
yeah.
It wasn't, and I think that's the truth, is that most books are a calling card in that way, unless you're Tom Clancy and then they're really a revenue source, but he's not on the call with us today. All right, so that's, you had a very interesting way of finding how to get published. So thanks for sharing that. Everett, your path was different because your company publishes books. So do you want to talk a little bit about maybe not how that worked for you, but if I walked in the door or called you, how would that work with somebody who wants to write a book?
Yeah, so we're a hybrid publisher, and so we sit between traditional and self-publishing. We'd like to think we're the best of both worlds. Traditional publishing has its advantages. It also has some challenges. If you go the traditional publishing route, first, your book may not see the light of day for a couple of years. That's if your book is even accepted. And to get accepted, you have to find a literary agent who has the right relationships, who then can sell your book into a publisher. Also, your royalty percentage is very low. It's usually in the single digits to begin with. And when you buy books, you're buying them at a discount, but not anywhere near at cost. And you sacrifice creative control. And should you decide to repurpose that content later, and we're huge on repurposing content, you may find yourself shackled a bit. But self-publishing means you've got to do everything yourself, figure it all out yourself, and then you may publish a substandard product, and that has its concerns too, not to mention the time. So we sit in between. Our clients have complete creative control. They maintain all the rights to their books. They get their books at cost. They get all their royalties. And yet we're doing the editing, we're doing the layout, we're doing the cover design with their input at all times to create a very professional product. And then when we're done, we do an Amazon best-selling launch in an effort to make that book, at least for a short period of time, an Amazon #1 best-selling book. And that's what we've done coming on 100 times now. So, but like I said, we feel like we're the best of both worlds, and clients get to maintain all of the great things, but not have to do all of the hardest things.
All right. And you, in the introduction, I know it said you do with speakers who already are speaking, I guess, have to think for a minute about
and people who are building a speaking career as well, and business professionals and those people who know that a book is something that they'll be able to leverage for their brand and business.
I guess I was trying to ask in a convoluted way, how selective are you? You said nonfiction generally. So is it topics that you think are pretty cut and dried? You're not looking, if somebody comes to you with a work of fiction, they're not really your top client?
Yeah, and like for instance, we'll do memoirs every now and then. Those are appropriate, but we will typically not take on fiction. There the majority of our clients are using this as a business tool. And so this relates to their speaking brand, rather than, the latest romantic vampire fiction, or something like that. So yeah, we are somewhat selective in the content. But the great part is it is our client's content. It's not content that we are going to own as a publisher. It's our client owns it.
Okay. And so one of the things that we're talking about is speaking, and I want to talk about that a little bit more, how you see people finding that and how that works. Are they selling books from the back of the room, which you really can't do so well now that we're all on Zoom? But Junko, I know you have a speaking engagement tonight. We talked about that last week.
Yes.
So how did you come to have this speaking engagement, and have the speaking engagements been productive in terms of finding you new clients or in selling the book or just building awareness that you're there in the community? What's been the benefit?
Yeah, so for the tonight, one of the ladies that I interviewed, and she's in my book in a retirement section, and she's a founder of a women's group called the Transition Network. I think that's a national network, and she founded an Atlanta chapter. So I interviewed her about her members, what's the pain point of them, kind of thing. I interviewed her as a professional side, not the side who went through the mistake and transitions. So she wanted me to speak tonight to her group about the things that her group is wondering, but they don't really have answers, or they want to hear from some experts, such as when should I take required minimum distributions, or when should I take the social securities, and what's the decision point, what should I look for, or for the second marriage, what should I be careful, that kind of thing. So I'm going to talk about that tonight. And when I published my book, that was end of February. And I emailed and Facebook, and I said, please review my book. And then on Amazon, I got like 37 5-star reviews.
Nice.
And
Very good.
I mean, I want to increase it, but it's it's hard to do more, but because of the time and all that. But anyway, so that was that's how. Then by doing that, by email and stuff, other group contacted me and they wanted me to speak. So between end of April and now, I think I spoke 17 to 18 times.
Wow, that's
and I haven't spoken that much before, so I know it's because of my book.
okay. So it's been a good tool to get you out in front of people, and I'm hoping that you've also found some new clients out of that.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I haven't closed. I haven't, because the reason is that I haven't done my own webinars using my book. So far, I am invited to each organizations like caregivers conference, or, aging in place, or, musical group or whatever. So it's harder to kind of, what do you call it? Make offers in other people's organizations and try to get client, I figured. So next year I have a plan that I hired a marketing company, and I'm going to do my own webinar so that I get all the people's email addresses who register, but in other people's organizations that they are not going to give me their members, email addresses. So unless I offer something and they want it, so I'm going to go nationwide next year by using my own webinars.
Oh, good. So then all of the members of the Global Tribe will be able to sign up for your webinars. That'll be exciting. And that's okay.
On that topic, I was just going to share, especially since one of the things we're talking about is how to leverage a book or how to sell a book and that type of thing. Something Junko just mentioned is, yes, when you're on other people's shows and stages and things like that, it is harder and harder to kind of do like a long form pitch of your services. However, a lot of times they'll let you give something away. And so I'm going to put a link in the chat. And so this is for two reasons. One is it's an opportunity for you to get my book for free. Also, it's an opportunity for you to see how to leverage a book in a webinar. So if and you don't have to do this now, in fact, you should do it later, but that link will take you to a site where you can get a free digital version of my book. But also when you land there, you'll see, once you've opted in, you'll also see, oh, but if you really would rather have the physical version of the book, here's a link to Amazon. And oh, if you would rather have the Kindle version of the book, here's a link to Kindle. And so it's giving, but at the same time promoting and selling. And it's just one of the many, many ways that you can use your book to get people into your brand. So that link there in the chat log will take you there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You'll see a bunch of activity based on this meeting today. So we all thank you for that. And one of the things that's actually the key topic of next week's conversation, but I'd like to touch it today, and that is a website. Do you have Junko or Everett, do you recommend to your clients that they establish a standalone website for the book, or do they promote it on their own website, assuming that they all have a website? Junko, do you have a website for the book, or do you have the book added onto your own business website?
So I have a landing page, and so I'm gonna put that in the chat, and I don't know whether that's called my website, or hold on, that is the yeah, but hold on, I'm sorry.
No, you can do it in a minute. You can finish talking and then do it.
Oh,
So you don't
I
have to
see.
try to do two things.
Yeah, so I created the landing page and then give the link to the landing page. So when somebody goes to click the link, and it goes to my book page in my website, on my website, and then there it said buy now. And then when somebody clicks the buy now, it's directly going to Amazon.
Perfect.
And then somebody can buy it. So
Okay.
that's how I created it.
Okay. And Everett, what do you recommend? What do you see your authors doing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a wide range of options. We'll usually recommend an author start with something relatively easy. And that is, rather than creating a whole new website for the book, just create a page on your existing web page. Even if it's at, yourdomain.com/book, it can be on your navigation, at the top of your website or blog, all of that. But that way you're not incurring the cost and the time of building out a full-blown site. You can still go get a domain for the book. Okay, so for instance, and by the way, I'm really good at giving advice to people, but not always implementing it myself. So forgive me for this. But you could get, like, for my book, The Power of the Published, it could be thepowerofthepublished.com, but just redirect it to land at that page that's on your existing website, rather than having to create another site or domain.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing you can do is use tools like Kajabi or ClickFunnels, or you can do it with WordPress as well, to create a landing page like Junko's talking about. And that's really what you've seen with mine, right? Is you click, you land there. It says, hey, I've got this free thing for you. In this case, the whole book, if you want, if you'll opt in. And then if they want to buy it, they could still go to Amazon if they want the physical one, but that's after the opt-in, because Amazon doesn't give you any sales data on who bought your book. They don't give you an email address or a name. So you really have no way to ever reach out to that person. That's where having them opt in somewhere is really key for building your list. And by the way, I want to thank several of you for already opting in. I see it. I've gotten notifications already. So thank you. But that's the power of opt-ins, right? I mean, that's what's great.
And that's the power of being part of the global chamber, is the tribe supports you, and we are really good at taking care of each other. You raised Amazon, so I want to come back and talk a little bit about Amazon. And I think I want to start with you, Everett, because you approach them not just as an author with one book, but you see Amazon as it relates to a bigger population. Are there some things about Amazon that you've seen as, from a publishing standpoint, that might be useful for us as authors to know?
Yeah. So Amazon, like it or not, is the 800-pound gorilla in the space. It's interesting because they're actually bigger than we knew when it comes to books, because here's what we've discovered is that we've known the statistic that 80% of books are being sold on Amazon right now. Okay, 80%, which is astounding. But 95% of books sold online are being sold on Amazon, okay, or are being bought through Amazon. So Amazon is not just the 800-pound gorilla. It might be the only gorilla practically, or pretty soon to be. So it's an interesting thing to watch play out. So you must be on Amazon. However, the great thing is that there are tools out there so that your publishing, when it happens, can happen on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com and Walmart.com and Baker and Taylor and Apple iBooks and Google Books, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's no reason not to be on all of the online platforms, but just know that almost all the action is going to happen on Amazon. One of the things that people fail to take advantage of on Amazon is something called Author Central. And that is, Amazon allows you to create an author page that's just about you. And a lot of people fail to take advantage of that. So I'm going to do a screen share really quickly, and I'll show you why this is so important. Okay. So this is what do you call it? An incognito window. And I'm doing a search this way because if you ever search in something that's not an incognito window, Google coughs up different results because they know it's you. Okay. So I want to do a generic search of my name. Okay. And see what comes up. Now this search is through DuckDuckGo, but it would be the same if very similar if I search through Google. But the very first hit on my name is that author page on Amazon. And if you claim this real estate, it is almost always going to be the first or second hit that anyone gets when they search your name. So when I go here, here's the author page. And this is an opportunity for me to be branded. And we can list my books, my bio, my headshot. I can even have videos here. I can tie it to my blog, but don't look at how old my last blog post is. But you can do all these things here, testimonials from my authors and stuff. So this is all really powerful real estate that's absolutely free. If your book is on Amazon, no matter how it got there, you can go claim this through something called Author Central. So highly, highly recommend that you leverage this real estate, and so many authors fail to. Okay. And there's a million other things about Amazon, but there's just a quick one for you.
Yeah, thank you. One of the things that I didn't realize, my book's published by a traditional publisher, Routledge, a division of Taylor and Francis. And at some point, and they published it as an ebook and a hardcover, and now are going to do a paperback because it makes it easier for Amazon. They don't have to worry about keeping it in stock. I didn't realize that Amazon also has a huge printing operation. So if they run out of your book, or they don't have to fill up warehouses now with hardcover books, they just press a button and they print it. And that was new news to me. I was fascinated by that.
So you're referring to what I call the eighth wonder of the world for authors. And that's print-on-demand publishing. And some of you are familiar with it and some may not be, but Amazon, if you set it up this way, will house not your book, but your files. So there's no cost for storing inventory. There's no warehouse space, et cetera. And when someone orders your book, within 24 hours, they print that one copy of the book and send it. It's absolutely phenomenal. It also means that as an author, if you have set it up this way and have access to the print on demand, you can also get your books very inexpensively and at any quantity you want. So if you need 5 or 10 books, you can do that. You don't have to order a case or 5 cases of books. And my book, for instance, the paperback version is $2.75. That's my author cost, whether I order one or whatever. And this also leads into you leveraging the book as a speaker or as a consultant or anything like that, because it also means that you can have those books very easily drop shipped to a speaking destination rather than you stuffing them in your suitcase or the trunk of your car. And that's also true with a key client. You have a key client, you're going to be doing a workshop and they want 50 copies. Great. Boom. And you can do it for the $2.75 and charge your client whatever you want. And those are the freedoms that you get with this type of publishing rather than traditional publishing, where you're going to find, well, no, they need to buy it through a bookstore because we need to keep the love going through the bookstore, that type of thing. Print on demand is, it's fantastic. It has its trade-offs, but by and large, amazing.
Something else to know about and think about. I thank you for that. I want to pause here for a second and see if we have any questions. If somebody has a question that we haven't, or a topic that we haven't addressed, then if you could raise your hand or put it in the chat. Otherwise, we are just going to keep rolling forward because we have a few more minutes. Hi, Lothar, saw you come in. Good morning. Alex, nice that you joined us. It's always special to see familiar faces come back and join us. All right, so we seem to be answering questions, I think, that people have. I want to ask too, one of the things we've talked about in a previous session was having a support community, first for the nice people who read your book before it's published and tell you how terrific it is, except they think you should change one of the chapters or something that people tell you graciously and kindly. But I'm wondering, Junko, have you found a community or special people who have supported you or encouraged you or been helpful in selling the book as you've gone ahead? Maybe somebody who's supported you by introducing you to some organizations to speak at. You mentioned one woman, but I'm wondering if there's a broader community that has supported you through this effort.
So the time is a big issue for me because I run my business and I consult with clients. So, if I have unlimited time, I would market, but the reality is I don't. So one of the other people who participated in my book and I interviewed in the inheritance section, that she inherited parents' money and made a big mistake, spend it all and all that. So she, because of her own experience, and she's also in my book, she reached out to me and she said she wanted to be my PR person. And she's a funeral director at the local funeral home. So she, she has a lot of, the network. Then she just reaches out and gets some places that I speak. And then I give her money, when she does it. So that's arrangement. So it's not like a retainer. It's a really good arrangement for me. And so that I told her next year, I want to speak 30 times a year. So it's 2.5 a month, and then just go all over. And then she's working hard on that. So that's, to me, it's an easier way than I just email and reach out and just simply, I don't have time.
Right. Yes, because you're running a business. That's the whole point. is to drive more business.
That's right.
as
Yeah.
well as- So 30 times next year, we will celebrate you. That's very
We'll see how it goes.
ambitious and exciting. All right, Doug, excuse me, but Doug, I see your hand up, so please go ahead.
Hopefully one of those 30 will be a global chamber for sure. Junko,
Thank
your
you.
your story is so inspiring, and I love kind of the whole package. You're just extraordinary, and amazing, as Lanie says. The you said 5,000 5-star reviews on Amazon, I think, and Everett said, "Wow." And so, and then you also said you don't have time to market. So how do we resolve all of that? Because that took time, right? And I'm curious from both of you, how valuable is that? It seems like it is valuable. And then how do you manage your time to be able to create that?
So, Everett?
Oh, okay. So reviews are very important. And Amazon, unfortunately, is very touchy about reviews. You've submitted reviews yourself probably that have been rejected for no reason whatsoever. And yet you see sometimes reviews come through that you're like, how did that get there? I mean, that's clearly fake. But no, reviews are very important. We tell our clients, it's like, look, start small. And I don't think Junko said 5,000 reviews unless I misunderstood.
37, only 37, 37, not 5.
Which, by the way, is great. That's fantastic for your book. I give you perspective. Okay, reviews are hard to come by unless you're doing lots and lots of major media and selling lots and lots of books. So we just tell our clients, look, target the first 10, make the first 10 a goal, then make the first 30 the next goal, and then go to 50. Now I've heard conflicting statistics that 30 and or 50 are benchmarks for Amazon, where they begin to say, oh, I guess this book must be, important, and start to feature it in their own marketing. The great thing, though, is that, remember, if people are buying your book, then Amazon is likely to also start featuring your book down below, where it says people who bought this book also bought this book. And you'll start seeing that kind of thing there. And every now and then, you'll never know it, but your book may be part of an email campaign that goes out. Like I've had my clients' books marketed to me, by email, which is funny because they've got to know that I'm involved in these, right? But they know everything else. But no, reviews really are important. There is a tool that we are experimenting with right now to get reviews. It's called Pubby. Pubby, and I can actually drop a link in here if anyone wants to check it out. Let's see where I have it. In all honesty, this is an affiliate code, so I think I get something for it, but I think you also get a discount if you use it. But Pubby is a site where it allows you to review other people's books, and it encourages other people to review your books. In an effort to drive your review numbers up. So that is, there are some tools out there. You have to be very careful. You have to make sure to stay within Amazon's terms and conditions. You don't want to violate anything there and get them upset with you. Pubby does it by making sure that you're reviewing this book, and the person who reviews your book didn't get a review from you. So there's not a review trade, so to speak. But anyway, reviews are important, and I would encourage you to pursue them for your book.
Okay, that's super helpful. Doug, I'm going to ask Gloria because her hand's up, and I'm not sure if you have another question because your hand's still up.
Oh, I'll put my hand down. Sorry.
Okay. And Gloria, please, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have a question for Everett. What would be your key tips or guidance for repurposing existing books? What should be the key thing to think about? Is like the cover, or what is it about repurposing a book would be key?
Okay, so there are a lot of different things there, but let's just take the cover, right? Your cover branding is branding that you can reuse in your website, you can reuse on your business cards, you can reuse on your social media, et cetera, right? To create everything being a pretty uniform thing. You'll see my branding. Actually, if you look over in the corner here, you can see my business logo. You can see we worked it into the cover of the book, but in a way that didn't scream like a lot of times if you put a logo on a book, it screams self-published. This one, it's, yes, our symbol's here, but nobody knows that's our brand until they get deeper into it.
Mhm.
But it's about creating some brand uniformity, which isn't absolutely required, but it can be really beneficial. As far as the content in your book, if you've already written a book, then you now probably have 30 or 40 blog posts already written. Okay, right? You can take that, chunk it up, use it as blog posts. You probably have 30 or 40 social media posts. You probably have hundreds of quotes that could be parts of social media posts. You probably now have a speech. If you didn't have a speech, you probably turn your book into a speech. In fact, one of the very first things I did after we published The Power of the Published is I had a team member of mine go through and make a PowerPoint slide deck to go along with it. And I didn't have to make the deck myself because she already had all the content right here. Create the content once, but use it over and over and over. The next thing that, in fact, I've already done it, I just haven't published it because we've been publishing everyone else's books, is the workbook that goes with this, right? Which is just Q&A to follow it. And the audiobook, I'm about halfway through recording the audiobook, which is another piece that people should be thinking of. Audiobooks last year exceeded ebooks in sales for the first time. And that's saying something. Audible is backed up like crazy because of all the audiobook submissions coming in. I definitely recommend, if you have a book, strongly consider an audiobook version of it as well. Okay.
Now,
Which can also be repurposed, because if you do it right, you can also use those files for a free opt-in off your website or sell them back of room, or it goes on and on.
Okay, the other part of the question is, or comment is, I understand that once you publish a book, and I have 4 of them on Amazon, it's there permanently. You don't take them off, they're there. But if you want to rewrite the book, revise it, and resubmit it, you resubmit it with a different cover, maybe the content has changed somewhat, and then you have a second version of it. So tips for if you're considering taking something you already have and revising it and then posting it, what are some tips there?
Yeah, so if you're going to do that, you absolutely can do that. And you've seen it, like if you've ever seen like the series Mythical Morning, is it Mythical Morning? Anyway, Hal Elrod's series, he's got, and I'm botching the title, but it's like Mythical Morning for real estate agents, Mythical Morning for chiropractors, Mythical Morning for medical professionals, like that. And those books are, I'm going to guess, because I haven't read them myself, but are probably 95% the same book. Amazon will look through your manuscript and electronically compare it to other manuscripts. I don't know how consistent they are with it. They will do that. And they'll come back with, hey, wait a minute, this is someone else's book. I see it here. And then you're like, no, actually, that's my book. And I have the rights. And they'll go, oh, okay, you can do that. But I would just make sure that it's clearly a distinct book. It's got its own ISBN number. Yes, the cover, the title, etc. But that's another great way, Gloria, thank you for bringing it up, to repurpose your content, is to niche it and create versions of it for specific niches. Like if Junko wanted to target dentists, for instance, she could create a version of her book that's tweaked slightly, that's specifically for dentists, perhaps. And so it's a very powerful way to leverage your content.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're beginning to wind a little bit down, so I want to be sure we get Lothar's question before we have to wrap up. So Lothar, for you, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Question I have is, one author told me one of the tools that he uses is book press releases. And, I've done some, our local Chamber of Commerce in Springfield, Illinois has something called Member News, and they've always published my book press release. But, I don't know what all these newspapers in my area are doing. I consider it local news. They've all told me they like local news. I don't know what happens to this stuff. And then we have a Spanish language version of one of my books, and I sent it to all the Spanish language newspapers in the United States and some in other countries. And I just wonder, does anybody know anything about book press releases? Are they a waste of time or what? If you're an unknown person, I could see how a Clancy book press release might work because I know who he is, but an unknown person, is that a worthwhile endeavor?
If you want me to throw in on that, we do press releases for our book launches, but honestly, it's almost a throwaway. I hate to say it. There's just so many press releases out there and they're distributed through so many channels, really just digitally automatically, that I question the value of devoting a lot of time and energy there. And you've got tools like PR Web that will charge you $500 for a press release. You could spend a lot of money that way. Sometimes I feel like we're doing it more out of a formality than anything else. So I think way more effective than press releases are podcast appearances and things like that, and blogging and those types of things where people are coming to the media because they're attracted to the content and the subject matter. That's my thought. Other people may have other experiences.
Agreed. All right. Thank you, Lothar. Thank you, everybody who's participated. Special thanks to Everett and to Junko for so generously sharing their experiences and their knowledge with all of us. Look at how much we know now that we didn't know when we got on this call today. We are truly recipients of your generosity, and for that we're grateful. And we hope that everyone will join us next week when the focus is going to be on websites, creating an author's book website and deciding if that's something you want to do. And again, we'll have two outstanding panelists, Professor Roberto Ansis and Dana Austin, both authors, both members of the Global Tribe. And Gloria herself will be the moderator, so you're in for a treat. I encourage you to come back next week, same time, same Zoom room. And again, Everett, Junko, thank you so much for all the time and effort you put into participating with us today. We look forward to signing up with you, Everett and Junko, to attending that first webinar that you do next year. So thank you. And Doug, any words to close us out?
Another inspirational session. Really appreciate all of your wisdom and sharing it today. Just love the spirit. So thanks all. And Lanie, you are amazing in the way you moderate. You're so smooth. I expect to be like you.
Clearly a pro. Clearly a pro.
Yeah.
You are a pro. You should write a book.
Maybe I'll do that. Thank you all. Wishing you a good rest of your week. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.